Don't know who you're about to find out, and you will not regret it. Hi,
Hey, 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 how you doing?
you did your first Instagram live. I'm so proud.
Yeah. Or I may have done one before. I don't know if I've done a joint one before.
Got it, got it. Yeah, my very first one, I didn't know what button to push or where to go or how to figure this out. So, we're here.
Yeah, well, so far so good.
Yay. So it's so funny because I started to write notes on, how to do this. And then from everything that I've learned from you, I realized how pointless that is for me to write notes because the best things come from just the moment and the place. And what I love about what you do is that you create conditions where people have their own insights
Mhm,
with your words or sometimes with your silence.
mhm.
So, is there any way to describe who you are to people? Like anybody who's watching who doesn't know who you are?
Yeah, sure. Well, there's the short version. I'm a Sunday Times best-selling author, speaker, coach, teacher. I write books. I work with audiences. I work with companies. I particularly love working with coaches and therapists and change workers and showing people how to grow successful businesses doing what they love. So that's what a lot of my work is. But my kind of passion is uh, helping people get a feel for the principles that govern our experience and transform their lives. So I'm kind of in the transformation game, Emily. I love, well, kind of what you said, my job description is to help, like even on this session tonight, my aim is to make it as easy as possible for people who are tuning in to have the insights and realizations that are going to make a big difference in their lives. So that's what I love doing.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I've really been affected by your work. It has totally turned my practice upside down because I don't now, whenever I go into a session with a client, I don't see their illness, I see their wellness.
Yeah,
Um, and I don't see that I am their answer. I see that their answers are already within them. And I just create as much as I can this space where they can get their own insights because it's so much
yeah.
better than me telling them what to do.
Well, here's the funny thing, Emily. When I first, because my background, right? I for years I was ran educational companies, teaching personal development and working with coach and all that sort of stuff. And then I guess about 13 years ago, I came across the principles behind clarity, and I started having realizations. And the first realization I had was, oh, everything you've been looking for outside of you is already there within you. Now, we've all heard that, right? Like from whether it's from Eckhart Tolle or from, whoever, that's kind of a truth that's found in every spiritual tradition. But I went from knowing it, like from it being the kind of thing you could tell someone at a cocktail party, to like it in your heart. I knew it. And so immediately that started, reorganizing my priorities. Well, a few weeks later, I was talking about this stuff with a group of my buddies, and I had another insight. And what I realized was that the fact that a person can even see or hear or feel or perceive, like anyone who can hear my voice right now, the fact that you can even hear or see us means you have an innate capacity for resilience and well-being. You have an innate capacity for mental health, and to put not too fine a point on it, there's nothing wrong with you. Like we grow up in this, gosh, I mean, we live in one probably the most medicalized, pathologized time in history. And so, and I'm not saying people can't have some funny ideas. I mean, I know there are people with depression and anxiety and schizophrenia, and there are all kinds of things. But my assertion is, and by the way, to anyone listening, don't take my word for any of this. I invite you to, test it out in your own experience, try it out and see if what we're pointing to here isn't actually going on. So yeah, the fact that you can even see or hear or feel means that at the heart of your being is a source of mental health and well-being and resilience and realization and transformation that can bring you a beautiful life, no matter what you've been through, no matter what's gone on for you. And that, when I realized that, I was like, oh, holy cow, that completely transforms my work with clients, like it has yours. And the proof was there to be seen. The impact that my clients were experiencing was through the roof, and the impact I was experiencing in my own life was through the roof. So then not too long after that, still like 2009, June of that year, I had a sudden insight. I suddenly realized, oh, these are principles for psychology. This understanding is to psychology what the discovery of germs was to medicine. Like, Emily, I'm sure you know that psychology is a pre-principles field at the moment. There's like 800 different schools of talk therapy and 100 different theories of personality and all this sort of stuff. Well, that's what any scientific field looks like before the underlying principles of the field are discovered. That's what chemistry looked like before Lavoisier. That's what, physics looked like before Newton. It was all kinds of, shonky ideas. And the discovery of principles uncovers the unifying fundamentals beneath it. So that's what I'm passionate about. That's what I work with these days. And that's what, has such a big impact with my clients, and what I feel very, very, very grateful to have, experienced more and more deeply in my own life.
Yeah, and what I love about it is that once I see something, I'm realizing that I can't unsee it. It's like
right?
it's like a one-way valve, where before I was functioning in going back and forth through the valve, back and forth, back and forth. Like, I think this, but no, I think that. No, I think this. And then I get to this place where I just go through the one-way valve and I just don't go back. It's like I can't unsee these principles.
Well, that's the cool thing about it. I refer to it as subtractive psychology because it's leveraging something that we all have going for us. We all have an innate capacity for realization. And, there's a epistemologist called Gregory Bateson who said the biggest problems in the world are the result of the difference between how nature already works and the way people think. And if you look at the evolution of human knowledge, it's been a process of closing that gap. Like, we used to think that the sun went around the earth. It's like, oh no, the earth goes around the sun. We used to think that the earth was flat. It's like, oh no, it's spherical. We used to think that stars stayed up in the sky because they were made of tinsel or whatever. It's like, oh no, it's gravity. Like, the gap is closing. Well, the reason we're able to operate in the world at all as individuals is because we have that capacity to realize, to bring our perceptions even more closely in alignment with reality. And we've all done that probably this week, actually. Insight and realization is a very normal, everyday part of life, and we wouldn't be able to walk and talk and navigate the world without it. But what happens is, as you start to get eyes for these principles, like you've seen, it just starts to take stuff off your mind. So like I said, I refer to what we do as subtractive psychology. And I'll say to, when I'm talking to business owners and that sort of thing, they'll say, so what's this stuff you do? I say, well, you know how how most people have a lot on their mind. Like there's just so much going on. And they're like, yeah. I said, well, we teach you a simple understanding that takes things off your mind and clears your
Mm.
mind automatically. So you have the confidence and the presence and the peace of mind to enjoy your life and perform at the level that you want to and do what you're here to do. And yeah, it's a simple message that seems to be catching on.
Well, I have an example that I would like you, because I feel like the best way to tell people what you do is to demonstrate that for them.
Uh-huh.
And I have something that came up that really shocked me in my own personal experience. And so I just wanted to see if you would take a minute to talk that through with me.
Yeah, let's hit me.
Okay. I know you don't know probably my story, but 3 years ago, I resolved bipolar disorder. I had debilitating bipolar disorder that turned into rapid cycling. I was on a cocktail of medication. Long story short, I cleared out sugar and processed foods out of my diet, and magically, my mental illness went away.
Who'd have
I
thunk it,
haven't,
eh?
yeah, I haven't had a bipolar episode since April of 2019, so 3 years. And I haven't had a psych med since September of 2019. And I
Yeah,
didn't
cool.
end up in the psych ward, which is unheard of.
That's
You
a
know, just,
five-star result.
yeah,
Good
yeah,
for you.
totally
Good for you.
unheard of. And then the craziest thing that happened in the middle of all that is I ended up in the hospital. And I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and then I couldn't walk without an assistive device. I had delayed and slurred speech and worse brain fog than I ever had with the bipolar disorder. So my insight, my knowing was continue on the same path, remove the sugar, remove the processed foods. And it was just this gamble that I took. And I started eating, you know, fatty meat. My last symptom of MS was May 9th of 2019. I've been able to walk, run, everything. I haven't had any symptoms of MS. All of my MRIs show that the activity, MS activity is gone. So everything is great. I've been the picture of health for 3 years. I've been helping
Glad
other
to hear it.
people. Yeah, I've been helping other people break their addiction to sugar and processed foods, and helping them on this path. And it's been amazing. 3 months ago, my energy tanked. And I was just like, what? I went from like superhuman to like the normal person. Like I was tired. I wanted to take naps all the time. And I was just like, what is this? Ended up getting some tests done and to find out that I have adrenal fatigue and low estrogen. So there was a logical explanation for that. But what I don't like was that I threw a fit. I absolutely threw a fit whenever I wasn't the picture of health. And it was just like I went right back into that thinking of, oh my gosh, here we go. This is the end of the world. Everything is horrible. Oh my gosh, I'm sick.
What I heard was 3 months ago, my energy tanked. I went from being superhuman to being human. And what I didn't like, oh, and you said I had adrenal fatigue and can't remember the
Low
other thing. And you said,
estrogen.
but what? Low estrogen. But you said, but what I didn't, which you said was just logical explanation. But what I didn't like was,
Okay, what I didn't like was my thinking.
mhm,
I threw a tantrum in my thoughts.
mhm.
I didn't go back to that knowing that I am well and knowing just the first sign of any bump in the road, I threw a fit. I went into like this, oh my
Now
gosh, the sky is falling. The
is
sky is falling.
is that true? Like what I just heard you say is the first sign of any bump in the road. I threw a fit. Are you telling me that up until that point, the road had had zero bumps?
No, but this felt like a bigger bump.
Got it, got it, got it. So here's what occurs to me. You know, here's the funny thing. I was married a long time ago. Uh, and at the time, I was doing all kinds of wild stuff with my brain. Like I was learning to speed up time and slow time down. I was learning to read micro expressions on people's faces. I was basically anything I could do to basically develop superhuman abilities and acuities and that sort of thing. So here's the thing that struck me, Emily. So
You
I was
said
doing
something
all the
about
stuff.
you were married before and you were doing different things to change your brain.
Yeah, yeah, and working on all this stuff. And at one point, my then wife said to me, you know, you might want to consider spending a little less time trying to be superhuman and relax into being human.
Mm.
And the thing that really struck me is like, it can be fun to operate at a superhuman level, but humans got a lot going for it. And the funny thing is that strikes me like one of the things I really love about your story, you know, that like as I listened to your story, what I heard was I had, you know, been diagnosed with bipolar, and then for whatever reason, you decided to, how did you come to decide to cut out sugar and processed food? How did that happen? Because I guess everyone knows, right? Like that, you know, no one goes to the doctor and the doctor says, hey, you know, you really shouldn't eat a lot of sugar. No one goes like, are you kidding me? When did they find that out? Like everyone knows that, right? But to actually make that decision and to do that, how did that happen?
Well, I I had gotten so sick that I had to move in with my mother. So it was really bad. And my brother reached out to me, and he's not a nice person. And he did something nice. So it got my attention. Um,
Well, things must be bad.
yeah, yeah. And he sent me just one chapter of a book by Amber O'Hearn, and she's this brilliant, brilliant woman who 10 years ago did this diet and found that her bipolar disorder just fell away.
Cool.
And so I was like, if she did it, then I can do it. And what it was focusing on fatty animal meats, not
Yeah.
eating a healthy diet, because I
Yeah,
knew I
yeah,
couldn't
got
do
it.
that.
Got it. Got it. Well, now, so you did that, and then you got MS, you got diagnosed with MS, and you had a knowing that the way through it was to do the same thing. Like, so the thing I love about that, bunch of things I love about that, what you were leveraging there physically was millions of years of evolution,
Ooh.
right? Like you went from a diet that has been invented in the last 5 seconds of processed food and, you know, sugar, refined sugar and all that, to the food that people have been eating for millions of years, that our bodies have evolved for and our systems have evolved for. And you leveraged the wisdom and intelligence that's been at the heart of our beings for all of time. Like there's something so natural and so organic and so essential and so human about what you did. It's so human. And so I really like I really like the humanness of it. Now, Emily, I have a way of thinking about things, which is that people are always doing what makes sense to them at their current level of understanding. So it's my assumption that if you were operating at a superhuman level, that's because it made sense for you to do so. And then when you came down to earth with a bump in terms of your energy levels, that's because at a systemic level, it made sense to kind of slow things down a bit. Like
Mm.
I imagine, I could be wrong, but I wouldn't be at all surprised if you'd been getting the message for days or weeks or months before your energy levels went that you needed to maybe slow down a bit or not burn the candle at both ends. Am I right about that?
You're right. You're
Yeah,
absolutely right.
surprise, surprise. This isn't my first time. So, yeah, yeah. So, the thing is in life, and you'll understand this, and speaking as someone who's interested in, health and well being and that sort of thing, typically, wisdom will communicate with us in whatever way we've got ears to hear. So, it starts out with a gentle whisper. It's like, Emily, take care of yourself. And sometimes we're like, oh, got it. Yes. And other times we're like, yeah, blah, blah, shut up, shut up, shut up, fuck off. I'm busy. I'm having a good time. Shut up, shut up, shut up. Right. So then what wisdom does is it just knocks louder and louder and louder until it gets our attention. So it got your attention. It's like, boom. Oh, now I can't do anything. And then you're like, I don't fucking like this. And I understand that's the ego kicking in because you had a way you want it to be and way telling life it should be, and the wisdom and intelligence of your being had different plans for you. And so, like, I don't know, as far as I know, all the tantruming and kicking and screaming and all that sort of stuff, that was you putting up a bit of a fight before you kind of let life have its way with you. I mean, you don't seem to be having a tantrum now.
No, but I was disappointed that I slipped into that thinking so quickly.
So quickly compared to what?
Compared to what I know.
Yeah, well, here's the thing about what you know. Sometimes you see it and sometimes you don't. This isn't something you know intellectually. This is something you know in your heart. And then sometimes we lose sight of it. And that's everyone, right? That's me. That's all my teachers. That's all the people I've taught. Like, sometimes you see it, sometimes you don't. And sometimes, you know, life takes us somewhere where we don't want to go. Right? Life, we've got our idea. If you're anything like me, Emily, you've got your ideas about what life should be like and what life shouldn't be like and what you should be able to do, what you shouldn't be able to do, and all that sort of stuff. And the wisdom and intelligence of your body and mind and spirit, they have their own knowings about that. And my long experience is that the body is this incredibly faithful servant that support and pretty much uncomplaining kind of takes all the shit that we throw at it and that sort of thing. and it can do a lot, but sooner or later, if we're operating in a way that's out of integrity and out of wholeness with what's right for us, it's not going to let us do it.
Mm.
So my assumption is like the issue wasn't that you had a hissy fit when when your batteries got drained. The issue was you weren't paying any attention to your wisdom in the months before your batteries got drained. That's like you were. I mean, this is just my thumbnail diagnosis. In the months leading up to it, you were getting the gentle whispers of Emily, chill out, slow down. That's all you. La, 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 fuck off, fuck off, fuck off. I like what I'm doing. Don't bother me. Da, da, da. Then life goes, okay, boom, tantrum. I don't like it. That's what it sounds like to me. I mean, based on almost no data, but that's put it this way. It's not an unusual pattern. I'll never forget. I was doing a workshop in Norway once. A group of 30 or 40 people. They're all new to this. They were from a community of people, and the leaders of that community had basically just flown me over and promoted the event and got all these people there for like 2 or 3 days. And it was a really beautiful event. And there's a young woman there, maybe in her late 20s, early 30s. And bless her heart, she'd been diagnosed with like chronic fatigue syndrome 7 years earlier, and was only just starting to kind of ease out the other side of it. But it was still very, she'd been having a rough ride of it. And she said to me something which I've heard. I can't tell you how many times I've heard this from people with chronic fatigue, from people with ME, from people with those kind of conditions. She said, "I just want things to be back how they were before this happened."
Mm.
And I looked at her. I said, "Yeah, I'm not so sure about that." She goes, yeah. I just want things to be back to how they were before this happened. And I'm like, well, here's the thing. It looks to me like this happening is a result of how things were before this happened. How things were before this happened led to this. That means this is a signal that it's time to change. Well, now, just between you and me, Emily, the one thing that our personalities don't want to do is change.
Mm.
They want to keep things the same. It was their job to keep things the same as they were yesterday. But that knowing at the heart of your being, that wisdom and intelligence that animates you, it knows what the future holds for you. It already knows what's going. So, you're going there anyway. It's just your personality, your ego, however you want to describe it, your misunderstandings. Just do a bit of kicking and screaming along the way.
Yeah.
Big deal. Talk
about like jumping off the hamster wheel. Like I wanted to stay on the hamster wheel of superhuman. Yeah. And so I didn't want to listen to that insight that I was getting to slow down.
Yeah.
And then it was that hamster wheel that was that limited thinking that I needed to jump off of to go to the next leg of the journey. I had to go through this.
Right. So like my assertion is the same. The issue isn't that you threw a hissy fit when the wheels fell off. The issue is that you had your fingers in your ear for the months before the wheels fell off.
That's great. That's great.
Now, what's great about it
is that I can appreciate whatever comes.
Yeah, I mean, that that looks like wisdom in action to me.
Like it doesn't matter. Literally, it literally doesn't matter what happens to my body. It's just this big experiment and I'm going to figure it out.
Well, and you have a source of wisdom and intelligence within you and within your body, within every cell of your body that's going to guide you and support you. Like your body is it's got a lot of wisdom and intelligence in it. Like everything from, like if you stop and think about it for a moment, what was the last thing you ate?
Today,
Yeah, or
um,
yesterday or whenever.
beef fat, and steak.
Got it. So how much time, thought, and energy have you put into digesting that and
None.
distributing the nutrients throughout your body? No, but there's a wisdom and intelligence in your system that's doing all of that for you. You don't have to pay any conscious attention to it at all. It's all getting handled for you. So, like, yeah, that's going on not just in our digestive system, but in our, immune system and in our circulatory system and our nervous system and all that sort of stuff. It's also going on in our thought system. So, yeah, you don't have to work at it. It's already being handled.
Mm, mm. Thank you so much. Thank you
Oh,
so
you're
much.
very, very welcome. It's such a great question, and I mean, I know my perspective on it's unusual, but maybe other people will find it useful as well.
Yeah, and also I work with people who are addicted to sugar.
Mm.
Um, and I know that in your book, Clarity, you talk about your experience of breaking that addiction to alcohol. And to me, it sounds like it was a moment. And I think that's what some of my clients are seeking is a moment, but they keep going back and forth through the valve, you
Well, the way
know?
it looks to me with any kind of addictive behavior is that it's kind of the thing I said earlier. People are always doing what makes sense to them at their current level of understanding. So that's true whether what makes sense to them is, eating Hostess Twinkies or whether what makes sense to them is, smoking crack or shooting fentanyl or whatever, like, drinking alcohol, smoking cigarettes. The reason people do that stuff is because it genuinely makes sense to them at a systemic level. And the only thing that's going to have them let go of those behaviors in any, persistent way is if it no longer makes sense to them.
Mm,
And the thing that is going to take it from, making sense to not making sense is their own insight, their own realizations. But the fortunate thing is everyone has that capacity for realization. It's there in all of us. So, when I sit down with a client, and sometimes, I'll work with someone who's they by the time they get to me, they've been struggling for years with something, whether it's, addiction or depression or anxiety or some other, challenge or self-image stuff, whatever. And so they think it's this big job. And I'm like, oh no, no, you've got an innate capacity to see through this. So all we need to do is make it easy for that to happen. And you would be amazed, Emily, at how readily and how quickly people are able to see through that stuff.
mm. It's almost like they just need the permission to believe that they're capable.
Well, here's the funny thing. It's gonna like that sounds good. I'll tell you, it's funny, Emily. I did a poll once for therapists and coaches and change workers, and I asked them, what's the number one thing that you believe, like the number one change you could make that you believe would make the biggest difference to your impact with your clients? Like, what's the number one thing that would take your impact through the roof? And the number one, people voted for all sorts of things, but the number one vote at the top of the list with like 90% of the votes was rock solid belief in my ability to help people. That was what all the coaches, if they thought, if I really, 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 really believed and had confidence and certainty in my ability to help my clients, then I would be able to have a much bigger impact. Right at the bottom of the list, with one vote from me, was rock solid certainty and confidence in your client's capacity for resilience, realization, and transformation. I've got some cool skills and stuff, but I'm not even thinking about those. My focus is on the innate capacity for resilience, realization, and transformation that my client has within them. Even the client who comes to me and says, it's terrible, here's all the terrible stuff that happened to me as a child, and this is what I'm like, and here's all the medication I'm on, and everything like that. I'm like, yeah, that sounds bad. Fortunately, that's irrelevant. Now, I'm not saying that those things haven't shaped how a person's experience is, and in some cases, people been through terrible things, and my heart goes out to them. So I'm not being a monster. I'm just saying that the fact that every single human being has this capacity for mental health, for well-being, for healing, for transformation, for resilience, for realization at the heart of their being. It's there in everyone. Because that's there, everyone has huge reason to be hopeful. Huge reason to be hopeful. That capacity is so persistent and so reliable and so leverageable that it's there to be seen. And so, speaking to you as a coach, I don't it's not like I even give people permission to believe in themselves or anything like that. That sounds too complicated, and would require confidence and stuff. It's much simpler. It's sort of like if I came to you and I was like, oh, Emily, I'm terribly concerned that I'm going to float off into space because gravity isn't real and isn't going to hold me to the ground. And so I'm holding on to stuff all the time so I don't fly away. You'd be like, well, that's okay. You can let go because you're going to be fine. I'd be like, oh, well, yeah, I just need permission to believe in myself. You don't need, you already know. It's already handled. It's a done deal. It already works the way it works. So the reason I mention that, Emily, is the more that you as the coach, as the change worker, as the therapist, as the helper, the more that you can see the truth of that in your client, the more you model it for them, the more, they pick up on it. So you get eyes for it and your clients will pick it up from you.
I could just stay here forever. I could stay here and talk to you forever. And I know, and I hate to cut it off because I know that anybody listening to this is getting so much from this. And they're going to get it from the replay. But I respect your time. I respect you so much. And I'm really excited. I'm listening to it again for the fourth time. Your book Clarity is hitting a 10-year anniversary.
Yeah, it's wild. The 10-year anniversary edition is coming out in January. That is, if I finish it. I've got a deadline to finish it by mid-July, so I need to put the finishing touches on it. But yeah, I'm really excited about that.
Well, if I liked it 10 years ago, I mean, the 10-year ago version, this much. I'm so excited. And even Little Book of Clarity. And
Yeah.
then any event that I've been to, like Clarity Live, just amazing.
Well, thank you. I'm just like for any author, having a book even survive 10 years and the publishers wanting to reprint it is a huge gift and a blessing. So I feel very grateful to be in a position to kind of sharpen up how I see it. Like, because I read the original book and I'm like, ooh, that was a little bit off. So I'm looking forward to tuning it up. So anyway, thank you for inviting me, Emily. It's been a real pleasure.
Yes, and if somebody would like to work with you, what is the best way for them to reach out to you and to contact you?
Best way is either go to my website, jamiesmart.com, or just pop us an email on info@jamiesmart.com and just write Emily sent me in the subject line so I know where you've come from.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. I am so grateful for everything that I have learned, and I'm so excited about everything that I'm going to continue to learn as I jump off this hamster wheel and just enjoy being human.
Right on, Emily. Lovely, lovely, lovely to speak with you. Take care. Lots of love. Bye.
Bye. Thanks.